What is good, streaming people? Welcome to another edition of CBS Sports HQ. I'm Tommy Tran. We're getting you ready for another big night across high school football, including a look at the top games of the night and the players you should be looking out for. Let's not waste any time. Get to the top 5 excellent rankings in the schools. Names you know. St. John, that is. Bosco, Mater Dei, Allen, Grayson, and St. John's. We will be talking about all of these schools and so much more coming up on the show. So without further ado, let's bring in Zack Poff, MaxPreps out of Sacramento, and then Barton Simmons, 24/7 Sports. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us in the show. Let's get right to it and talk about our first topic. St. John's Bosco, they have not been scored on in the first 2 games, hosting Mililani out of Hawaii, and Hawaii's top quarterback, Dylan Gabriel, committed to Army, visits the boys from Southland. Zack, we'll start with you. Let's talk about the game.
Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it, and we're going to finally find out if someone can put some points on St. John Bosco. They've yet to allow a single point so far this year. And, you know, the thing with Bosco, I strongly believe they're the most well-rounded team in high school football. They've got the #1 quarterback in the 2020 class, DJ Uwangalele. Big-time running game, big-time passing game, and the defense led by Chris Steele and Trent McDuffie in the secondary, man. They're big-time. Mililani, probably the 3rd, maybe 4th best team from Hawaii. So this is going to be a fun matchup to see if they can at least score some points. You mentioned Dylan Gabriel. He's, the best quarterback they've had there since Mackenzie Milton, who's doing work down in Florida. So this is going to be a fun one, but, I like the Braves big. They're the #1 team in the country for a reason, for sure.
St. John Bosco scoring a lot of points, not giving very much up. Barton, your thoughts on this matchup, too? A lot of, again, quarterback play right now should be a spotlight for this one.
Well, look, DJ Uwangalele is probably a guy that's got #1 in the country upside. And so I think every game is a showcase for him. He's big, he's strong, he's got as big of an arm as there is in high school football. It's one of the bigger arms we've, ever seen as a prospect. The guy's got an absolute cannon. But as you mentioned, Tommy, look, I think that the story is just that defense and how stingy they've been. So good in the secondary, led by Chris Steele and Trent McDuffie, and then Spencer Lytle at the linebacker position kind of mans that second level as well. It's a college defense, truly, across the board. And so if you're going to beat these guys, if you're going to score on these guys, you got to have college-level talents to bring to the table. And that's why it's going to be a tough task for any high school football team to get on the board against this group.
All right, so a team that's always been talked about with St. John Bosco is Mater Dei. Mater Dei Cruises crushed Bishop Gorman 42-0 in Las Vegas, beating the Gales in back-to-back seasons. So it all looks like it's going to be September 12th with St. John Bosco and Mater Dei. But again, as we take a look at what they need to do, Zack, anything that they can do in their power to leapfrog St. John Bosco before that October matchup?
Man, I've always been a strong believer. If you're #1, you're probably not going to drop from that #1 spot unless you're in a very tight game against a team you should be blowing out, or obviously if you lose. But the way Bosco's looked so far this year, there's no reason to flip-flop those 2 teams. But, man, Mater Dei looked pretty good last week. 42-0 win in Las Vegas against Kenny Sanchez and his Bishop Gorman squad. And that's one of the most impressive wins in the early part of the season. You're going to look at Bryce Young, man. This kid, a 2020 USC commit. I don't like to compare guys, but he's got that Russell Wilson in him a little bit, and he put on a show in Vegas. Sean Dollars had a big-time game, Oregon commit also. He had 3 touchdowns of at least 50-plus yards, and, Mater Dei handed Gorman its first shutout loss since 2006, so pretty impressive stuff what Mater Dei's doing. And real quick, they're 1-1, but that forfeit loss, not a big deal for me. The player that played in that game came into the game when it was 42-7, and Mater Dei really had no clue that he was ineligible. So that's not a big thing for me in the rankings. So Mater Dei stayed at 2.
Before we move on, Zack, you were at that game. Big picture for Bishop Gorman. What do you take away from that game most? Big picture.
A lot of people dropped Gorman out of the rankings, but I didn't quite yet, just because that's how good Mater Dei is. They're the defending national champs. They've won, 18 games in a row if you don't count that forfeit loss. They got Centennial, a state champ from last year in Arizona coming up tonight, and then they also play De La Salle. So those are the 2 games I have circled for Bishop Gorman to prove that they belong in the top 25. But one thing with Kenny Sanchez, man, he has his boys ready to roll. I think they'll bounce back.
All right, moving on, let's talk about Allen, Texas, the season opener in the Tom Landry Classic. For Allen High School, 4th time in 5 years, opening the season at Eagle Stadium. They've won all 7 straight at that event. So it's going to be Allen and Mesquite Horn. Let's talk about the preview. Zack, what are you looking out for?
I'm looking to that trio, man, with Allen, led by, Theo Weiss, 5-star Oklahoma commit, big-time playmaker at the wide receiver position. Grant Tisdale, man, he's a playmaker. He's the best quarterback Allen's had since Kyler Murray, who led them to, 3 straight state titles. And, I look at Allen as being the favorites to win another state title in Texas this year. It's going to be a big one. Mesquite Horn's got some guys. They got a strong linebacking course. That's going to be a fun game to watch. And you get a look at EJ and Doma Ogar, too. He's a big-time offensive lineman. And Jaden Jernigan on the defense, man. He's a stud at the defensive tackle position. I love Allen this year, and they're going to compete for a national championship if they run the table again for the second consecutive season for sure.
Yeah, I think that duo, Grant Tisdale, Theo Weiss, I mean, that's really what this is all about. That's what really makes Allen click this year, at least what makes them so dangerous. Grant Tisdale, an Ole Miss commit, Theo Weiss heading to Oklahoma, and I think both of those guys go into spots where they can really showcase their ability because, Tisdale in that Phil Longo spread offense kind of has that multiplicity in terms of the way he can move it outside the pocket, the different ways he can beat you. And Theo Weiss, so big, so athletic on the outside. Those guys are going to be a tough matchup at the college level and the high school level as well. And then EJ and Doma Ogar, again, an Oklahoma commit who's pretty dominant at the offensive line. Allen always spits those guys out, and that's why they're so tough to defend on offense. I really think that this is a team that's got a chance to win every game they play this fall.
All right, gentlemen, let's move on and talk about Grayson, Georgia against Bergen Catholic, a top 20 battle. Grayson beat Tucker in Georgia. They take on Bergen Catholic in what they call the Georgia versus the World showcase this weekend, especially for Grayson. All that talk about their first game and the protest, and that really maybe galvanized them moving forward. What are your guys' expectations about what this matchup can be with Bergen Catholic coming from New Jersey? Your thoughts? We'll start with you, Barton.
Well, I just love the matchup for one. I mean, a New Jersey powerhouse against a Georgia powerhouse. It's just going to be fun to see. I mean, both those teams so talented. Bergen Catholic, actually Yale commit Josh McKenzie, a really good player, the star of the Yale class, actually injured himself recently, a guy that is probably not going to be available for this one. But you see Ramir Johnson there, who is, I think, a kid that could come and be an impact type of guy. Nebraska commit, big-time speed guy, very dual threat or all-purpose in terms of what he brings to the table out of the backfield. And then Aeneas DeCosmo, who's got kind of that Big Ten offer list and a very national appeal on the recruiting front. Big body kid that can be an edge threat and also catch the ball at tight end, be a linebacker. So they've got the horses to go down there to Georgia and contend with that Grayson roster. But Grayson as well. Look, there's not many teams that have the kind of top end talent that Grayson has nationally. Their elite players on that roster are as good as they come. So I'm fascinated by the matchup because Bergen Catholic is always very well coached, and I think this is going to tell us a lot about that Grayson squad. And really, like you said, Tommy, how galvanized are they at this point?
Zach, I want to ask you specifically in this game, for them, Bergen Catholic, to go out of state. Some may say that New Jersey, it's not a very good thing for them to go out there. It may not impact their season. What are your thoughts about them venturing out and playing a game and a team like Grayson?
Yeah, I think it's good for Bergen Catholic, man, because last year we saw them roll out to SoCal, and they got handed pretty bad against Mater Dei, who ended up being #1. And they're kind of in that same position now with Grayson, who's one of the top teams in the country. So this is kind of a second chance opportunity for Bergen to show that they belong with the other national powers and out of state. And, Barton mentioned earlier just, tough news with Josh McKenzie, being out. He's most likely out for the year with a torn ACL. Same thing happened with Grayson's running back, a 2019 Nebraska commit, Ronald Tompkins. He tore his ACL in their 48-7 win against Tucker. So Grayson's going to have to find a way to run the ball without him, too. So, tough news with two of the best running backs kind of being out for the year. So, obviously, hope for a speedy recovery for both those dudes.
That's a top 20 matchup. Let's talk about a top 15 matchup. Your featured game of the week, St. John's out of Washington, D.C. at #5. And then the two-a-day school, of course, #13, Hoover out of Alabama. Zach, your thoughts first, and then Barton afterward.
This is, I always say this around here at work, man. This is a get your popcorn ready type of game here. You got two powers, St. John's and Hoover. I really think it's going to come down to the quarterback battle. Both 2020 guys, Soljay Maeva, came from the 808 out in Hawaii at Kahuku High School. He's taken on Robbie Ashford, who looked great last week in their big-time win against Bo Nix in Pinson Valley. they handed the defending 6A Alabama State champs a 52-14, beating. So it wasn't a good look for Pinson Valley. But this is an impressive game, man. There's ballers all on the floor here. And MJ Sherman's a guy I think that's going to have a big impact, a 5-star linebacker for St. John's. He's a guy to watch for sure.
Yeah, and you mentioned Robbie Ashford, the quarterback for Hoover. And really the whole question about Hoover this year was the quarterback position. Like, we knew Robbie Ashford was a really talented quarterback prospect, but he's had very limited opportunity to actually throw the ball and actually watch him under center at the varsity level. He was injured this spring with the shoulder injury. How healthy was he going to be? What was he going to look like in live action? And man, week one of the more impressive performances we saw anywhere in the country was what Robbie Ashford did at the quarterback position in the class of 2020. And George Pickens, the Auburn commit's a big part of that. A 6'4", athletic, physical receiver on the outside that can go up and body defensive backs and just out-muscle them for the football certainly helps. But Robbie Ashford's big, he's athletic, and now we know he's very accurate as a passer. And I think because of that, the top's been blown off the ceiling for Hoover this year. It's going to be really interesting measuring stick this weekend. Obviously, that's a talented squad from Washington, D.C., but I'm really excited about the trajectory of things for Hoover and for Robbie Ashford right now at quarterback.
Great matchup again. St. John's won the first game of the season, has not lost since last September. St. John Bosco. Hoover, two-time defending state champs in Alabama. As we take a look at the top 5 scoreboard, we have mentioned and talked about each of these schools. Mililani out of Hawaii again, St. John Bosco in the Southland. And then the list goes on and on and on down there for the top 5. Now let's go to the 6 to 15 excellent schools. And let's focus in on Lake Travis, Texas. Number 9 in the excellent rankings. They open up the season right now. And Zach, what are we thinking about this team out in Texas right now?
I'm thinking Garrett Wilson's going to put on a show every Friday night, man. 2019 Ohio State commit, big-time wide receiver. And, Barton mentioned Robbie Ashford earlier. I think another 2020 quarterback, Hudson Card, is going to put up numbers just like Robbie Ashford this year. Those are going to end up being 2 of the best kind of dual threat, but they also have big-time arms. But anytime you got Garrett Wilson on your squad, man, you're gonna be lighting up the scoreboards every Friday night. I think Lake Travis will they're going to be the biggest threat to Allen to win a state title this year in Texas. But check out Garrett Wilson's stats every Friday night. That's a lock every week.
That's a look at Lake Travis and the schools 6 to 15. We'll stay in Texas. Take a look at the rankings from 16 to 25 and focus on Duncanville. Barton, your thoughts on this school?
Talented squad, and it's going to be fun to see what the quarterback, the Quinton Jackson, can do. A 2020 kid, another athletic guy at the quarterback position, but probably as talented as anybody is Marquez Beeson. Kind of a do-everything type of athlete, committed to Illinois, could play on either side of the football. I really like him a lot as a defensive back. And then, his brother as well, Zariah Beeson, is also a kid to sort of keep an eye on in terms of a guy that's got big-time ability, a 2020 guy. I mean, these are guys that have played at Bishop Dunn in Dallas and transferred over and have a chance to make a really big impact at Duncanville, make that team a lot better, honestly. And I think that with a really good quarterback getting into football, there's a lot of upside for this offense.
All right, gentlemen, good stuff. Sit tight. When we come back, we're not done yet, folks. We are going to take a look at the best games in each region, also have a focus on recruiting, so do not go anywhere. We'll be back. Welcome back to CBS Sports HQ. Let's take a look at the West Coast region. Best game of the night, Mililani and St. John's Bosco. Zach, your thoughts? Let's go.
Yeah, man, California versus Hawaii, we're going to see if the Hawaii boys can hang with the SoCal boys. Really, that's what I'm looking forward to. SoCal's got a little, they got to bring it back for them because we saw what St. Louis did in Narbonne. So St. John Bosco wants to show what SoCal football is about. I'm watching DJ Wangalele tonight. He's going to probably show why he's the best quarterback in high school football against Mililani.
St. John Bosco has not given up a point through 2 games so far this season. Let's move on to the best game in the Southwest, and it's Katy versus North Shore. Zach, what should we expect out of this matchup this weekend?
A lot of running because they got 2 of the best running backs in the country in this one. Katy's got DeAndre Glass, who I believe is one of the best running backs Katy's ever seen. And, this is a program that's had some big-time running backs led by Rodney Anderson now at Oklahoma. And DeAndre Glass is big time. I think he's going to put on a show tonight. And then obviously North Shore's, they're loaded with some of the best 2020 and 2021 kids. So it's going to be a fun one. See what Zachary Evans can do. Speaking of the kids, what about the North Shore talent, Barton?
Well, look, Zachary Evans is the #1 running back in the country in the class of 2020. He's a fun guy to watch because he's big, he's physical, but man, that dude can go. And so he's got that long speed. Zach said it. I mean, this is a great head-to-head running back matchup, one of the best in 2019 versus one of the best in 2020. If you like running back play, this is going to be a fun matchup to watch.
Moving on to the Southeast region and a school that we have talked about before. IMG Academy, 38-game winning streak after last week's 42-0 win over Pine Richland. The team from Florida. Zach, what are we to expect out of them this weekend?
Yeah, you know, they're playing Miami Norland, a team that's always loaded with talent. And, you know, IMG answered a lot of questions last week against Pine Richland because they didn't look good in their preseason kickoff classic, you know, but they bounced back strong last week. They went up to Pennsylvania and beat the 6A defending, you know, state champs in Pine Richland, and 42-0 shutout win. Noah Kane was big time. Nolan Smith out there, you know, hurting quarterback. So IMG, man, circle September 21st. That's when they roll to SoCal to take on Mater Dei, and the week before they play St. John's. So those are going to be two big-time games back-to-back.
Yeah, Zach, they really seemed like they turned it up a notch last week. Maybe heard some rumblings about people being disappointed in their preseason showing, but man, they're just so deep with talent. Nolan Smith, as athletic of an edge rusher as there is in high school football, and Evan Neal is sort of the Orlando Brown of high school football this year as a left tackle. And then Noah Kane, Trey Sanders. Look, those are two borderline top 100 prospects at the running back position. Trey Sanders is a 5-star guy. So there's just so many waves of players that you see coming at you from IMG Academy. And the quarterback position isn't as high profile for them this year, but it doesn't even matter just because there's so much other elite talent on that roster.
Moving on to the Midwest, Coleraine versus St. Xavier, one of the best rivalries in all the land, but Cincy getting some love here on HQ. We have, again, the list right now of the Midwest top 5 programs. Two of the best out there in the Queen City. Zach, what are we to make of this particular matchup? Big picture.
Yeah, man, Battle of Cincinnati. Who's going to flex their muscle? You know, St. X Coleraine, always big-time matchup when these two lock horns. The last 4 times these two have played, it's been a 1-score game. 6 of the last 7 have been decided by 8 points or less. They both started the season 1-0, and the winner of this game is going to have a chance to creep into the top 25. But, you know, real quick right now, the #1 team in Ohio, Pickerington Central, the defending Division I state champs, looked pretty good last week. Demetric Crenshaw, named to remember, 2020 quarterback. I call him Cam Newton Jr. because he's a big bad boy out there at the quarterback position.
And let's go and finish with the Northeast region. St. Francis Academy out of Maryland, St. Joseph's Prep out of Pennsylvania, #2 and #4 in the region. How do you assess these two schools?
I assess it with a lot of talent, man. St. Francis is straight loaded, #7 in the top 25. St. Joseph's Prep is on our bubble list, so they're one of the next 5 out. So a big win in Maryland against St. Francis Academy would definitely get them into the top 25. And you know, it's going to be interesting for St. Francis Academy because they lost Jalen Jones, you know, a Florida commit at quarterback. So they got to replace him, but they're loaded everywhere else. And, you know, Shane Lee, 5-star Alabama commit at linebacker. He's definitely a name to watch out for. And, you know, Damon Clowney, the cousin of Jadeveon Clowney, and Chris Braswell on the D-line. That's one of the best 2020 combo there is. So that's going to be a fun one, man.
Yeah, and for the other side, talk about a name to keep an eye on. How about Marvin Harrison Jr., the younger brother, the son rather, of the Marvin Harrison, of Hall of Fame wide receiver, and already Marvin Harrison Jr. is a top 100 prospect in the class of 2021 for us at 24/7 Sports. Big kid, already looks like he's got that polish. He's going to need to add some muscle along the way, but really looks like he's got a chance to have a breakout season this year. Already flashed last year as an underclassman, and he's only going to continue to get better. So he'll be a fun one to kind of monitor his development over the course of the next couple of years.
Time to take a real deep dive into the recruiting process and the big news of both MaxPreps and 24/7 Sports. There are the 3 big storylines, and we are going to tackle them here on CBS Sports HQ. And we'll start with Kavon Thibodeau. And Zach, here we go. A #1 recruit in 2019. Let us know about the player, Kavon Thibodeau.
One word, beast. He's an absolute savage coming off the edge. He's the #1 recruit in the country for a reason. You know, you put on the tape of KT, man. He's an absolute savage getting at the quarterbacks. And, you know, the defensive line position or wide receiver might be the best in 2019. And one of the main reasons why the defensive line position is so strong is because of Kavon Thibodeau. You know, he's got nearly 30 Division I offers, and it's basically pick your college for KT. And, you know, Oaks Christian's been playing pretty good ball this year, and they have one of the best defenses in SoCal because of, you know, Kavon Thibodeau.
Yeah, and heading to Florida State this weekend for an official visit, and I think that's important. I mean, this is not a kid that's taken a bunch of official visits yet. This will be his first one. This is a Southern California kid, sure, and I think people early in the process assumed, okay, Southern California kid, #1 player in the country, 5-star guy, USC, check it off. But that's really not the way this recruitment has played out. I think that's why this is an important visit to keep an eye on, because Florida State, particularly with Willie Taggart, getting guys like Jaden Woodby out of last year's class out of Southern California, really has a chance to land a guy like this. Alabama also in the mix, along with, of course, USC, but also Oregon very much in play here as well. So Kavon Thibodeau, not only the #1 player in the country, according to 24/7 Sports Composite rankings, but also a guy that has a very wide open recruitment at this point in the process. And I think this visit this weekend could go a long way to kind of determining the trajectory of that recruitment.
And Willie Taggart, even though he's in Tallahassee that one season in Oregon, you know that area well if you're Willie Taggart, of course. Okay, guys, let's take a look at the top 10 recruits in 2021. And I want to focus at the guy at the very top, JT Tuimoloau, a defensive tackle. Zach, why should we be paying attention to the guy we're highlighting here on the screen?
You know, just like Kavon Thibodeau, you know, he's an absolute savage, you know, on the defensive line position. He's the #1 recruit from 2021. And, you know, Eastside Catholic, a team to really watch for in Washington. You know, here at MaxPreps, we came out with a top team from each state. And we had to go with Eastside Catholic just because of all the talent they have. You know, JT is one of the big-time guys, and then you got G. Scott Jr., Sam Adams, the list goes on. And I know Barton can touch on more on why he was the #1 recruit overall in 2021 also.
Yeah, I tell you what, Zach and Tommy, it's really about that versatility and the upside that he's got. I mean, he's 6'5", he's 277 pounds. He plays defensive end. He drops into coverage. He plays both sides of the football. He's got a basketball background. He's just got everything that you want. He's been a kid that's been on the radar now for a little while, very productive already on varsity, and is more than just a prospect. Like the proof is already there in the pudding. So I think because of that athletic background, because of that frame, he probably kicks down a defensive tackle long term just because he's such a huge-bodied kid. But I mean, he is a no-brainer type of dude, and we're going to have several years to figure out how to pronounce that name correctly, because he's going to be the talk of everybody here within the next couple seasons.
Crystal Ball has 100% as of today going to Alabama and Nick Saban. We'll end things with more recruitment news, guys, and a big one here. Keane Patterson decommitting from Ohio State. You're talking about a 4-star prospect, top 10 linebacker. Barton, you hear the news. What's your reaction?
Well, look, this is a direct correlation to what happened with Urban Meyer. This was a kid that was excited about Urban Meyer, excited about Ohio State, but kind of got a bad taste in his mouth with all the news around that program lately. And I think Ohio State's loss is going to be Clemson's gain. I think he plans on visiting Clemson this weekend. Brent Venables has made him a high priority. And I think he's a kid to keep an eye on in terms of a commitment there. So we'll see what happens. Dabo Swinney's got to sign off on it, but he has certainly become a high priority target for Brent Venables and that Clemson defense. And I think he is a special football player, a guy from my backyard who is just a baller, just always around the football, plays on both sides of the ball. So Keane Patterson certainly going to be a guy to watch.
All right, speaking of watching, thank you for watching CBS Sports HQ. For Zack Poff, MaxPreps, and Barton Simmons, 24/7 Sports, I'm Tommy Tran. Enjoy Friday night, enjoy the weekend, and we will see you 1 week from today. And remember, the 24/7 college football for 24/7 Sports in the podcast. Make sure to download it however you consume it, either with Google or Apple Play Store. We will see you, everybody. Have a great weekend.